And right, I'm going to just jump straight into it. So, hi guys, welcome to episode 2 of the 157 Hour. I am very happy to introduce the legend himself, that is TFC. And just before we start, give a shout out to G-Dub for hooking me up with this. You were heavily requested to get you on episode 2, so welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks, man. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for taking the time. I know not everyone has a lot of time at the moment, so I do appreciate it. So, I was kind of snooping through your YouTube channel a little bit earlier, just trying to get some information and stuff like that. And I noticed you yourself have been around on MX bikes since the very early stages. So how did you originally get involved with MX bikes?
Oh, wow. I suppose I've always played motocross games, and I think, like a lot of people, I tried sim and just kind of didn't gel with it straight away.
Sure.
I remember trying the demo and thinking, I can't even keep it on two wheels in a straight line. And like having ridden in real life, obviously, you know that it's a lot easier than that. So I kind of just gave it a miss, really. And I was sitting there one day and I'm thinking, man, I really wish they made another good motocross game, you know, like Reflex.
Yeah.
And I was like just scanning YouTube. I also was used to watch, like, you know, Start Your Systems, track walks and stuff. Because even though I didn't play the game, I loved watching the gameplay.
Yeah, yeah.
And I come across MX bikes, and it was like, I don't know if you ever saw it, but the original Alpha video where it was like, I think it was just a couple of corners from practice track or something like that. And I was just blown away, mate. I remember seeing the way the suspension was working over the bumps, and I'm just looking at it thinking, this is the game I wanted. And I just followed it from there, really. I got on board on the forum way before they ever released, same as people like G-Dub.
Yeah.
And that's it, mate. The rest is history.
Wow, that's incredible because I joined really late at like beta 14 and my friends were really pushing for me to play it. And I remember a couple of them saying it was really different back in the day, that it was a lot harder than it is now. And even looking at previous videos, like I can't seem to get past the original bike noise. I'm spoilt by the newer stuff, but the original bike noise seems to not sound the best. But yeah, like it's insane how far the game's come. So you've really been around since the start then.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a completely different game. I mean, like, I remember the first beta, you could barely, I mean, it was easier to ride than sim, but the front end would lock up for no reason. You'd end up sliding off the track. The back end would skip round, and you couldn't, you know, there was no air control, pretty much. It was like dead sailors everywhere. So, yeah, very different.
Yeah, definitely. So the main thing that I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're known for is all the track edit, and I don't think I've seen a single track on MXB mods website that hasn't got your name mentioned for the tutorial or something shouting you out in the credits. So it feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been there since the very start for track editing. How did you first get involved with editing and software? Did you have a background in it? Was it self-taught? Like what was that journey like?
Oh, yeah. I used to make tracks for Motocross Madness too.
Oh
Back
wow.
in, I mean, that was what, 2000, I think that game came out.
Yeah, yeah.
I've always modded stuff, mate. I used to make levels for Counter-Strike in Hammer. I used to
Okay.
make loads of stuff. Levels on Trackmania, always skinning and stuff like that. So I've always really been involved in modding. But actually, I wasn't the first guy to do it in MX bikes. That would have been Geofanatic.
Okay.
Don't know if you've ever heard the name.
No, no.
So this guy, he was a good friend. I haven't talked to him in years. But yeah, he was the first guy to really do anything in MX bikes, and he created a track. He created a couple of real basic tutorials, and back then it was like, I think SketchUp and I can't remember what else. There was a weird converter plugin, but yeah, he was really the first guy to do it. So, you know, if it wasn't for him, I would have been scared off doing it for a lot longer, because you read the documentation, and it looks pretty complicated.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
I've been through. I watched some of your tutorials, and I was really blown away by how much research you do into it. I saw you watching real footage, looking at Google Earth, and I was absolutely blown away by how much goes into it. I didn't make it all the way through to tutorial things, but I'm guessing that's where a lot of creators go to start developing tracks is through your channel and that kind of little series you put together.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome to think that I've had that bigger impact. Like you say, I download a track, and it's always nice to see, thanks to TFC for the tutorials. It's always nice to see that.
Yeah.
I'm just glad other people are making stuff, to be honest, because there was a long time where it was, I'd say probably I want to say 5 or 6 betas, where it was pretty much just me.
Wow.
There was a couple of other guys that came in here and there and tried it and didn't like it. And it was a little bit more restrictive of what you could do because of the physics of the game. But yeah, for a long time it was just me. I set up kind of a download site. Some of you will probably remember it was MXB Central, and it
Right.
had like you could upload and download and kind of like MXB mods. But I gave up on it because we had like, I don't know, 200 people that played the game. So
Yeah, so God, look, I don't know what the player base is up to now, and it's not huge, is it? But it's definitely a few thousand people about, so it's definitely grown since then.
absolutely, mate, it's phenomenal, and that's the influx of people from the Steam release. I guess that really did it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think I would have bothered downloading it if it wasn't for Steam. And interestingly, would you say the tracks have developed a lot with the newer betas? Because I remember someone mentioned to me recently that some of the older tracks they don't deform as well because of the previous betas. Has that really made an impact on kind of track development?
Yeah, totally. It's night and day. Like look at like Glen Helen, for example,
Yeah.
and there is no deform on that whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's a shame because that would be an amazing track. So do you think that's ever a possibility of a remake there?
Oh yeah, mate, it's on the list. Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I know you've got a huge amount of tracks up and coming. One of them was I was really excited about was Redbud. So is there a plan to eventually is there a time frame on those, or is it more of a time issue at the moment?
There was. They're still in pro. I was working on Unadilla today, actually.
Oh wow.
So I'm up that far. It's more, it's life, mate. Life, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way. I work full time. I've got a career. I've got 2 young kids. Got a dog. Got a car to pay for. You know all of that stuff. It all takes priority over modding, unfortunately. And maybe I bit off a little bit more than I could chew with this pack in terms of time. Like I thought I'd have it done a lot quicker than I actually have. But I'm planning at the moment to get them out before Nationals next year. That's the
Oh,
plan.
okay. Okay, that's awesome. So for people like myself that don't know, because I'm just in the YouTube space, how long would you say from start to finish would it take for you to develop a, say, an AMA national, and what goes into that? How much of a challenge is that?
To give you some perspective on 2 tracks, Iron Man probably took, I want to say, between 3 and 4 months,
Oh, wow.
just because of the detail that went into it.
Yeah.
And Mildenhall probably took one month.
Jesus. So you're really,
Um,
this isn't an overnight thing then. This is really taking you some time.
oh, totally, mate. Yeah, I mean, the height map's really the bulk of the work, like getting the jumps the right size, getting the track to ride correctly. I was really fortunate with Mildenhall because I've ridden there in real life, so I had a lot of perspective on how it's supposed to feel, and that really validated a lot of my my track making technique. So it made me think, actually, if I went and rode Redbud or whatever, maybe it would ride how I built it.
We,
But yeah, it took about a month. It was
yeah.
a lot easier to do, but there was a lot less to it as well. You're talking AMA tracks. You've got race replays to look at. You've got pictures. You've got aerial shots. You've got GoPros. You can do all kinds. So
Yeah, that's incredible because as MX Bikes players, we see something new come up, we jump on it, and we just play, and we don't think about what goes into that background, and that's incredible, really, that it takes you that amount of time. Is there anything you would say the game needs to develop to make your life easier, or is it a limitation with the software, or is it just a difficult
oh,
job to implement?
you know what? There's loads of stuff they could do to make life easier. But at the end of the day, the bulk of the work really comes from working on the height map, which you
Yeah,
can't really change the way that works. And the 3D modeling, which again is never going to be a part of the game engine.
right, right.
Um, I think they were talking about once maybe implementing some kind of object placement system, but it's
Okay.
it's not going to be create an object in the game. You're still going to have to do all that work in Blender. So
Yeah.
there's nothing they can really do to make it more streamlined or to really save a good chunk of time. Anyway,
Sure, and I guess you've had to work around the physics of the game themselves as well. Like one of the critiques I've had of some of the more mainstream games is they make these amazing tracks and the rider models seem so different and huge or tiny, and they don't seem to blend it well together. Whereas you seem to have nailed it with an MX bike. So I guess that's quite difficult with the physics you're presented with.
yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's different from every beta as well because if you go back and you look at like gameplay from Beta 2 or Beta 3,
Yeah.
the things you could do on the tracks were very different as well. So like Supercross is a great example. It's only really in the last, I don't know, 2 years that you've been able to ride Supercross tracks consistently, and like you've been able to, maybe a bit longer, but you've been able to build kind of like realistic rhythms and give people the option to do, 2-3-3 or 1-2-3, or different rhythm options. Because back years ago, you just couldn't do that. The game just didn't allow you to ride in a way that was possible. So the tracks have had to develop with the game. So you go back and ride older tracks, and they're going to be pretty much useless. They're going to feel small. They're going to feel,
Yeah.
the jumps aren't going to have any kick to them. It was just different. You had to kind of tailor that to the game engine.
Wow, it's again, that's something as a player myself you never think of, and some of the track deformations are amazing there. But like as a brand new rider myself, I went out the other day and I was utterly shocked at how ridiculously hard the conditions I were in. That the ruts were like knee deep. It was a horrible slop. And do you think that's something we could ever capture in a game, or do you think that realism would be too difficult to achieve, as well as kind of pushing that player base away as well? Because I don't know how you would implement it, but I would really like to see like a little bit more development with braking bumps and deformation, etc.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's something that we've highlighted on the forum over the years. I would love to see like a brake and bump system where
Yeah,
the more people come into a corner, the more those brake and bumps develop, and same for acceleration bumps out of a corner. Anyone who's ridden in real life knows that ruts don't form as berms.
yeah,
So another thing we all want to see is kind of a bulldozing effect where, although you deform into the track, you also get a dirt build up on the outside of that deformation. So, that would add another level of realism. You could actually have live line creation from where people have ridden, rather than giving people these kind of pre-manufactured ruts.
yeah, exactly. And
Mm.
that would actually change kind of the realism of the game, because suddenly the premier line is changed. It would force people to take another avenue around the track, which is something I'd love to see. Is the
Absolutely.
the best players in the game seem to just find the best way around avoiding either stuff or finding the best line, and that's that. It would be amazing to see kind of the transformation of the track in real life. Do you think that would ever be able to be implemented in a game, or is it just going to be too difficult for developers to do?
Well, looking at excuse me, looking at other tracks from other games that have been created over the years. So looking at Reflex,
Yeah.
the deformation engine they had in that was phenomenal. Look at games like SnowRunner, for example. I don't know if you've played that.
No, I haven't.
The ground physics and the tire physics are, I mean, that's what it's made for. You can tell, the way that the trucks grip the ground, the way they deform the ground, the way that has an influence on where you can and can't go. It's definitely possible. Whether it's possible in this engine, I doubt, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh,
But that's really down to the limitation of the height map, I think, and the quality of the height map.
yeah, definitely. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you as well as GW as well, out of all of this, was because I know you guys are running the MotoX Collective. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? What is the goal with that whole series? I believe it was your previous YouTube channel, wasn't it? That's been rebranded.
Yeah, it was just because we were kind of close to having the requirements, so we wouldn't have had to start from scratch. And to be honest, my YouTube was never about monetization and using it for what a lot of people would use a YouTube channel for. Mine was all about putting the tutorials up and just having somewhere for that. So it kind of made sense to use it. So the idea behind it really is just, it's kind of like, imagine if we could just encourage people to donate to track creators rather than selling tracks, I guess,
Yeah.
is one way to look at it. The other way to look at it would be to just give something back for the hard work that people put in. Because I'm not saying I'm unhappy with any YouTuber in particular. It's more the system just doesn't kind of.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you said yourself. You download a track, you just kind of run it, you play it, you go, that was fun. Put it on the back burner. You might play it every now and then on a server, whatever. But you don't kind of understand the length of time that goes into making it in the first place.
Yeah.
Whereas for
Yeah.
someone like me, where I've spent like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months making a track, and you sometimes you get a couple of donations, which is great. It's always appreciated, but not necessary. But it's really more, you see people playing it online, and they, some guys don't know who made it. Some guys don't know whether it's a replica or not. Genuine kind of stuff. And for us, we just kind of thought maybe we can offer people an outlet where we can review their stuff genuinely. We can give detail about it. We can get them on to talk to them if they want to come on. and we can kind of donate the proceeds of that video to them as well as just a thank you, really. It's never been about making loads of money for people. It's really more like, if they've got enough money to buy a couple of beers at the end of the month, then we've done our bit.
Yeah, and that's amazing to do. And without you guys, I stumbled across your video, and that's how it got me talking to you guys in the first place. And even watching your tutorials and everything, that really made me think like, wow, these guys are doing so much work behind the scenes for absolutely nothing. And like you said, to implement a DLC would be difficult. So I've tried to rebrand my reviews a little bit to really give the creators a shout out, to find their links, to throw them some money if possible, because although YouTube is difficult, it's not difficult for me to throw a few laps around the track, get a few hundred views, and if I'm monetized, I'm making money off all of your hard work. And it's quite easy for me to not give you the recognition. So I can imagine from your end, it's quite frustrating.
Yeah, again, I mean, for me, and I think a lot of other guys, frustrating is probably the wrong way of looking at it, because we understand
Yeah,
YouTube is a system that exists and streamers exist, and this is all part of it. And if we make content, we have to be okay with the fact that they're going to go and use it and run races on it. And, people are going to watch those videos and just give them randomly $10, $20.
yeah.
We just thought maybe we could do something just a little bit different. And to be honest, the fact that even you've said what you've said is wonderful. It's like all we want to do is thank people. And if you're going the next step in your videos to do the same thing, then we've achieved a goal in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I started doing track reviews probably a few months ago now, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, but one of the track creators, Higo, I did a review on his track, and I was totally honest, and I said I can't sugarcoat anything. I just didn't like it, and I gave it a low review.
Hmm.
And we had a bit of a back and forth, and he came to a really reasonable, grown-up response. And I started watching his track development, and I'm currently putting together a video on his track, and I was so impressed with how far he come. I chuck him some money and said, just watch out because I'm going to do a review of your track, and I've developed a sort of creator showcase where I pick my favorite creations and I want to try and promote them as much as possible and potentially give them a little bit of money to say, look, thank you for what you guys do, because without it, I wouldn't have any content to make, and I appreciate it. So it was really cool to see that development from him. And he could have turned around and said, you're a dick for doing that. And it's cool to see him grow as a creator. So it was kind of nice
Oh,
to
mate.
give back a little bit.
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about for us. It's like I said, I make tracks. Gary's made tracks. Gary's made tons of content like skins and that over the years. Um, we know loads of people and loads of people that have literally fallen off the face of the earth because they've just had enough of
Yeah.
constantly making stuff. And like, I mean, I get messages regularly from people, and they're all kind of, I don't want to come across rude or anything, but they're all kind of, a lot of them can be kind of entitled in the sense of people just want the stuff. They go, where is it? When's this
Yeah.
coming out? Can I have this?
Yeah, of course. And
Um,
hopefully
I'm
that'll
always
highlight this conversation today. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in.
no,
Of
no,
how,
you're all right.
uh,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm always polite to people. I'll always give people the benefit of the doubt and give them the time of day. Um, but it's that kind of attitude that I suppose we're kind of hoping to have some influence on.
yeah, definitely. And hopefully this conversation will highlight how much work goes into every track. Because I seen you've got what, 8 or 9 tracks in development at the moment, and to get that track pack done for the AMA Nationals, that has got to be a monumentous task. And as you said, you've got adults duties going on, so that cannot be easy. And you're not exactly going to get anything crazy out of that, are you?
I don't expect to get anything out of it,
Yeah.
really, other than I want to be able to race it online with my friends. That's all it comes down to for me. And to be honest, that's why I started making tracks in the first place. I had friends in the community, and I wanted to make content for them, and I wanted to enjoy it with them. And we used to play online no matter how shit multiplayer was at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, hopefully, if you guys are listening, the MotoX Collective, you can just help those guys out by subbing, liking, watching their videos. They'll leave PayPal links if you want to help that out, but mostly they can help by watching the videos, can't they?
That's it. Yeah, for starters, at the moment we're still kind of looking for those watch hours. So I think we're on about 2,500 out of 4,000, which is cool because it's really grown over the last month. So yeah, we're just kind of pushing that front at the moment, and then when we're there, we'll hopefully start being able to do some of those videos where we'll be able to give the creators something back. So
Yeah, that's perfect. And I watched your latest one with the sloth angles. Actually, really cool. It's kind of like gives me that Top Gear vibe. And it's just like the presentation and everything massively stepped up, and it was quite enjoyable to watch. So it's great from that perspective to see you guys. And I wish you all the best with it, and I'll start linking it in my videos and stuff, and making sure a few people can find it, and that'll help you out. Then I'm hopefully that does something at least anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Have you to go to diverge a little bit? Have you ever thought about taking the track building a little bit further and potentially, talking to motocross game companies and showing your huge amount of work and seeing if that can go anywhere at all?
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never really thought about it. I've heard stories in the past actually, like I can't remember who or what now, but people going to work for Rainbow Studios, and ever since like back in the early 2000s, that's been the rumor. But personally, it's always just been like a labour of love, and I mean, I got a career on the side of this. It's not glamorous, but um, I love my day job. Can't
Yeah.
complain. And I guess if I had the opportunity to go and do something else, I might. But I'd rather that was. I'd rather I was approached rather than seeking it out, if that makes sense. I don't have any professional background in doing this, so
Sure, sure. Well, at least if that day ever comes, you've got a huge catalog of work, tutorials, and a lot that will hopefully do it. Because some of the modern games are fantastic, but the tracks they seem to look pretty rather than perform, whereas your tracks seem to have like when you play first person in bikes and you're on one of your tracks, I'm like this. I've only done a small amount of riding, but I'm blown away with how realistic. It's all the little details, like you said, the braking bumps to the rhythm sections, and something that you just don't get in modern games. So you never know. At least you've got that work there just in case it happens.
well, thanks, mate. And yeah, yeah, I guess I have.
That's
Fingers
awesome.
crossed.
Yeah, exactly. So have you played any of the newer games? Do you have a bit of an opinion on them, or is it all just kind of MX bikes at the moment?
Well, I downloaded MX versus ATV, and I got the Pro National DLC just so I could check them out because just so happened to be the same year that I was doing. Um, and I'm impressed in the quality of the tracks, if I'm honest, because looking at the other Rainbow Studio stuff going back over the last couple of years or few years, it's always been one of those things that I've watched on YouTube and gone, I'll give that a swerve.
Yeah,
Um, but I was kind of impressed actually with the detail that went into it. As for the physics, I think literally all I did was tour the tracks. I don't think I could play the game for longer than 5 minutes. And I'm not a sim freak, I'm not
yeah.
all about sim games. I love arcade games and having fun. Something about the physics in those games, though, just it upsets me deeply.
Yeah, since I've made the switch to bikes, I tried a couple of things, but it's so difficult because it feels so fake.
Yeah,
It's a shame because
but go back to Reflex, mate, and you'll find that it feels amazing still. It feels natural.
it's insane, isn't it? Because that game is coming up to like 11, 12 years old, and they still haven't replicated anything like it. It's an
No,
arcade game for sure, but there's the in-air physics and the deformation. I still play occasionally. I tried making content and it flopped, so I kind of gave up on that. But for the fun factor, and you want to throw some
yeah,
nasty whips and stuff, it is incredible
yeah,
how well that holds up still.
and it's really like the way it feels when you pick it up and play it. I mean, the instant you pull the throttle and turn a corner, you kind of dug in. You're in
Yeah,
there. You're in the zone. It doesn't take any, like I was saying about sim. You have to kind of figure out how to play it. You can't just be
right,
natural with it.
right. That makes
Whereas I think
sense.
that's where bikes wins, and that's where reflex wins, and not alive. And from that point on, it was just
Yeah,
not that great.
yeah, I think I stopped with Alive, and I know they have this new MX versus ATV Legends I think is coming out, and to be honest, it looks much of the same, so I doubt I'll pick
Yep,
it up. And
yep,
is the community must see all the thousands of comments that are just like just make Reflex 2, and I'm surprised they
yeah.
haven't done that yet.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, the other stuff like the MXGP games, and the Supercross games, I've got to give them their due. The cornering physics in the first and second Supercross game, I want to say, were like amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
I played the first two, and I haven't played, and the Supercross 5 looks terrible, which is
yep.
really surprising. It's
Yeah, it's
quite
gone backwards. Yeah.
it was like almost like bumper cars on ice, and I was like, "What is
Yeah.
going on here?" So, but I don't know. It's a shame because I really want to see our sport succeed, and that has the biggest platform, and it's just a shame that they could be. You see something like MX bikes and the work that you guys put in, and the models and the tracks and the physics. To see a giant corporation just fall flat on its face like that is really disappointing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think like the era for motocross games has come and gone and then come back again. So I think we're in a really good place right now, and I think there's a lot of love for it. It would just be nice if we had, a little bit more from the big game companies, a little bit more of an adult experience rather than an purely arcade experience.
Yeah, I can imagine it's difficult from their point of view as well because they have to appeal to the masses. And although we're very self-critical of it, we're even as a fan and a player of the sport and a less experienced rider like myself, that kind of fan base has one side, and then you're trying to draw in someone who's never heard of the sport at all, and they want to pick up the game and play. So I do empathize with them in a slight way, but they could be doing a
Yeah,
lot more,
yeah, yeah.
which is a shame. But you mentioned you ride in real life, so what's your riding experience been like? What sort of background have you had to that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Bit hit and miss, really. So I used to ride when I was a kid. Nothing major. Um, like my dad used to take me to abandoned quarries and just sit in the car and let me go ride.
Yeah.
So I had a little, I had a, actually I had I think it was a YZ50, not a PW. This was like a late 80s one, I think. So I had like 4 gears and a clutch, which was amazing on a 50.
Yeah, that's cool.
Um, yeah, so that was my first experience of riding a motocross bike. From there, I think I had a 125 for a brief time, KX 125, which I had to get rid of, and I didn't ride for like 20 years.
Oh,
I went out and got a job, and education and all of that kind of stuff took over. Um, and then I had kids. And I kind of thought to myself, life is really starting to slip away. And I ended up getting an RMZ 250.
nice, nice.
So this is going back maybe 4 years, 3 or 4 years, and yeah, I've loving it, mate. I've been going to local tracks. I've been doing a couple of. There's something around here called Moto Duro, which is like it's kind of a cross between motocross and enduro. So
Okay.
you got tight tree sections and woods and stuff, and then you've got hill climbs, and then you've got like big open straights, big sweeping corners everywhere, and it's just a really easy day out if you like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of enjoying it. I'm not doing anything too serious. I'm 36. I don't want to hurt myself and put myself out of action for any.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So I take it easy, and I ride novice group, mate, really, and I just enjoy it. Just have fun with it.
That's the main thing, isn't it? It's not as motorsports go, it's fairly accessible, but it's still not the cheapest thing in the world. Just the bike alone can set you back, and then you need the transport and everything. So it's not the easiest sport to get into, but yeah, it's definitely one that I've been wanting to for many a year. My uncle has been racing since he was about 12,
Yeah,
and I grew up in a racing family, and I was absolutely dying to get out there. And I've only recently just purchased the KX450, and I only just had my second time out in a horrible condition day at Marshfield MX, and it was horrific. But I was like,
yeah,
this
it's got a video. Yeah,
yeah, we didn't get much footage, unfortunately, because, well, I have no technique on the bike, and I think we got out at the start gate. I got down the hill, and maybe a good 90% of people never made it off the first lap, where it was just horrific. So I felt a
yeah.
little bit better about that, but it was such an eye opener to
Oh, it
know
really is. It really is. Yeah, it
that.
really is. And when you do half a lap in good conditions, and you start picking up the speed, and you have to pull off because you get arm pump, it really gives you an appreciation for what the pros can throw down on a fast, like a 25-minute main.
100%, and then everyone was telling me all the tips, like grip with your legs. I grew up doing martial arts, so technique is like the forefront of my mind. That I don't care about speed or anything. It's like I want to dial good technique, but
Yeah,
trying to tell someone that while they're trying to grip onto a 450 while it's like absolutely zero traction just did me no good. And it was fun. I got arm pumped straight away, but I'm kind of in it now. I'm like I got to find a way to do this and try a couple of races. Like you said, I'm only 29, but that time slips away awfully quick when, like you said, you have a career. And I just want to get stuck in for the next 10 years now, and hopefully have a good time doing it.
yeah. Do your best, mate. And a little tip for the arm pump: I used to suffer really bad when I first started riding, and I read online that you can get these things called wrist rollers.
Okay.
I don't know if you've come across it, but
No,
I ended up
no.
making one myself. So basically, what it is a bit of metal bar. I think I used like an old wardrobe pole,
Yeah.
and then I drilled a hole right through the middle, bit of twine, probably about 3 foot of twine, and then attached a 2.5 liter bottle of antifreeze to the bottom. And then you hold your arms out straight, and you roll it up. And when it's at the top, you roll it back down. And you think, yeah, I'll do about 50 of these, and you do literally two, and your arms are burning so much.
Okay. I think I've seen
Um,
them. Yeah, they kind of like you rotate your wrists up and down. You pull like a weight,
that's what
or
you do, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you
And that
think,
works your forearms, yeah. And then I mean,
okay,
I did that for 2 months, Every other night I'd do spinning and I'd roll the wrist roller up and down while I'm doing it. And I started off doing a couple, and then I ended up and I'm doing like 20 to 30 reps. And I don't suffer with arm pump anymore. So it did it for me. Maybe give it a go.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my major things is just relaxing on the bike and technique, because it's intimidating to come from nothing to jump straight on a 450 is not the not the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'll give that a go. There's a huge misconception in because I'm a PT on the side as well.
Okay.
That I think there's a huge misconception with motocross training that they say avoid arm training, avoid forearm training, but it makes sense, like you
Mhm.
said there. If I can develop my grip and be strong in that area and have more endurance, it would make sense on the bike and technique and everything else. But I will definitely give that a go.
Well, if it's any consolation, my technique hasn't come along a lot in 2 to 3 years. So it's obviously done a lot of help for me.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's encouraging because I was just blown away by how difficult the sport is, and it made me, like you said, it made me respect the pros so much more. I know they've been doing it all their life, but it quantifies it when you're like, oh my God, this is mind blowing how they're able to do any of this stuff.
Yeah. And we've all had conversations with people, right, where you're like, look, motocross it's like the pinnacle of physical sport,
Yeah.
basically. And you get people saying, no, it's rugby or martial arts or whatever. And, fair play. All of those other sports out there are top as well, and they're difficult, they're mentally difficult, they're physically difficult. But motocross just has so much more uh, from the person as well that you need to. But, that's just me. That's my opinion. That's not.
You're probably not wrong. It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because every sport at the top elite level is unbelievably demanding, and I don't think unless you've been in a sport for that long, you can quantify it in any realm of how difficult it is. But
Of
I
course.
think people think because it looks like you're sat down, the TV makes it look flat. Even as a
Yeah,
spectator, it's just it's trying to like explaining what it's like to breathe underwater. Like unless you attempt something like it, you just have no idea. And I think it's a very misunderstood sport in the realms of
absolutely.
physicality.
Yeah. I mean, even just going to watch a race live and seeing it in front of you, it gives you a whole new perspective.
Yeah, yeah, and even
Yeah.
then, that still doesn't do it justice until you're out there. And I know a lot of people ride that follow these sort of channels as well. Like my girlfriend says she'd love to give it a go, and even stood on the side is just like you until you do it, you just have to experience it to understand what it's like.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully, I was speaking to Gary as well, and he said, well, if we ever get it sorted, it'd be amazing to do a ride day together and just have a bit of a laugh. So I'd be well up for doing something like that.
Yeah, I've been meaning to. We've been meaning to meet up for a couple of years now. I'm 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 not too far away. I think I'm about maybe 250 miles, something like that.
Okay, so not crazy far away then.
So we were talking about maybe meeting up somewhere in the middle, but
Yeah.
it's just never happened. Life gets in the way.
Yeah, of course, and all the young guys watching, it sounds easy now, but once you start getting older, stuff gets in the way. So
Certainly does.
it's
Yeah.
certain, yeah, definitely. So obviously you're a fan of the sport, and I noticed on your tutorials you had Mr. Roxon in the background. So do you follow the AMA GPs? Do you have a preference?
Oh yeah, yeah. I wish I had time for MXGP. I've tried getting into it so many times, and I don't know what it is about it, but I just can't. It doesn't draw me in, right?
Yeah,
AMA certainly does, Supercross does, but not MXGP so much. But I mean, I've been to Matley twice to see the MXGP twice. I was thinking about going again this year, but not in February.
yeah,
Um,
probably a bit cold.
wow, 2 years ago it was what was it? Late January, I think, early Feb, same kind of time of year. And like, I'm standing on the side of this. Have you ever been to Matley?
I watched the MX of Nations there.
Yeah, so you know what it's like. It's an amazing track for viewers, right? Because you can
Yeah,
stand anywhere and see everything, but you're on a hill the whole time.
yeah.
Freezing cold, can't feel your toes after like 2 hours, and you think, oh, I'm loving this, but seriously.
Yeah, yeah. There's a schedule. It's funny they scheduled that for the UK. They probably could have scheduled that later on when it's a bit warmer for us, and
Yeah,
scheduled something else. But I'm in the same boat. I grew up watching the AMA, and there's just I don't know. Maybe it's the single commentator or just the camera work or whatever it may be. I
yeah.
just cannot seem to. I can't make my way through a motor. I really can't. I tried so many times,
Hmm.
and the talent is unbelievable, and the races are amazing. And they're getting better. But every start of the season, I make a promise to myself, like, right, you're going to watch every motor, you're going to watch the EMX. And I get 2 rounds in, I'm like, nah, I'm good.
No, and like even after going to Matley, and I go, I'm going to watch the rest of this season because I absolutely loved it and I had an amazing time. and I go home, and the next week I'm like, I just miss it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the AMA it's very well. Obviously, it's Americanized, but it's got that. I don't know what it is. It's just it's easy to watch. The camera work is good. They've always got the back and forth with both the commentators there, and
Yep.
it's just so much easier to follow. So who is your current favorite rider in the AMA realm?
It's got to be HRC Honda, and it's Roxon and Jet Lawrence probably.
Yeah, and well, exactly the same as me. I grew up probably 2006, 2007. So I just as Ryan Villapoto was coming, he was my man. He was like I was his number one fan. And
Right.
then when he retired, Roxon quickly followed that space. So I really do wish him the best this year. I know he's had those horrific injuries, but there's something about his Euro style and his personality that seems to be a fan winning combo.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's his ability and technique, it's his personality, but it's also his endurance and like his willingness to push it back to being top of the sport again. And I mean that in the sense that anyone that races a main event is top of the sport. Whoever
Yeah.
comes in last, they're top of the sport. These guys are so amazingly good and talented. And just for him to be able to work his way back to that level after the 2 years of injury it just blew me away. And before then, I mean, I was a fan, but I wasn't a diehard. I want him to win and no one else fan. But
Yeah.
now it's like every year I'm like, I'll play fantasy Supercross and I'll choose with my heart and I'll be disappointed every time because Robson won't win. But
Yeah, that last Supercross season, that was such a good chance for him to win, and
yeah,
a lot of people give him a lot of shit for saying he bottled it, but I'm like, but have you shattered both your arms to have 17 plus surgeries and still do the sport at a high level until you've been in
right.
that situation? And it was with Cooper Webb, wasn't it? He sucked his right arm
Yep,
into the
yep.
swing arm of the bike, and I can't even imagine mentally how that must play on his mind to say, I'm still here. Do I take the second and go home and see my kid? Or do I attempt this and risk another injury?
Well, Webb got in his head, didn't he? I mean, he had beef with Webb when he went down originally,
Yeah,
and after that, every single time it was him or Webb, it was Webb. Webb got the advantage. So there's a lot of things that have played into his poor mental state, I suppose, over the last Supercross season. But I mean, I think he was solid, and seeing him outdoors like every year um, after the injuries, and seeing him get better and better results every year I mean, that's been amazing to watch in itself. Forget winning, forget getting a championship, another championship, whatever. Just seeing him progress back to being at the top of the sport has just been an amazing thing to see.
yeah, 100%. And it's almost like that underdog thing, isn't it? Like you mentioned, you play fantasy, and that really gets you involved with the privateers, and they do not get enough exposure. Like you said, if you're getting 17th in a Supercross main, you 100% are amazing on a dirt bike. It's just unfortunately you're overshadowed by the guys that are the 1% of the 1%.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I like seeing, I liked seeing like AJ Catanzaro getting into a main,
Yeah.
or like Enticknap getting into a main, and seeing them fight it out in the last chance because like you said, no matter who's there, they're all fast guys. They're all amazing to watch. So, in fact, I've seen more better action in some last chance qualifiers than mains.
Yeah, I used to skip them until I realised it was just like an absolute just maniac
Oh,
fest of
they're a
everything.
gold mine, man. And especially when you get someone in there that really doesn't want to be in there. Like you got Reed in there for a lot,
Yeah.
and yeah, Reed was in like every single one. It was brilliant.
So when did you first start watching the sport? Was when did you first get involved?
Well, I used to watch when I was a kid, but it was really difficult because, like I say, I'm 36, so I was like what 10 in '95. And I used to watch between the ages of I don't know 7 and 12, and I used to watch whatever I could see. So at that point, we had Eurosport, and Eurosport used to just put random stuff up. So like you'd see a Supercross, you wouldn't really know anything about it because you're a 7 year old or whatever. And I used to like watching the bikes, yeah. And then I'd see MXGP, so I'd see a bit of that. And then I kind of just got on with life and didn't think anything of it. And I came back to it probably I don't know. I want to say maybe 10 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit less. And I realized actually I could watch all of this stuff online. And I used to talk to people, and they'd tell me about this rider and that rider, and I'd read bits and bobs, and I'd see pictures, and I loved seeing it all. But I didn't really properly get back into it until I don't know, probably a year before. Maybe, yeah, I can't even really remember, to be honest.
Y-
Um, So I've always been a fan, but I haven't really kept up with it a lot because of, I guess, the opportunity to do so as a kid and then not realising I could as an adult.
Yeah, the it's actually difficult to watch for Europeans and stuff. I know the Americans have got TV packages. I'll probably get into trouble for saying this, but I don't know if you use it. There's a website called Motor TV, and you can get a subscription to that, and that literally has everything like Canadian GPs, AMA stuff, and I believe it's one guy doing a bit of a naughty stream.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
he
Okay.
is. I'll send you the link after this. I don't think it's
Cheers.
very expensive, and I probably shouldn't be saying this either. You can share it out with your friends, so you can all chip in and use one login.
Just
Hopefully,
beep out the web address when this goes live, yeah?
yeah. I'll peep that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got absolutely everything on, and I think the Supercross is Saturday night. By the time I woke up at 7 a.m. Sunday morning, it's all on
Yep.
there, ready to go, HD
Yeah.
quality. So
I
it's
will. I will go ahead and say that these days I don't have a problem. Well, I appreciate that, but yeah, you know what it's like. You find a way because you want to watch it.
yeah, exactly. And I
Um,
I don't mind paying for a little bit, but some of the TV packages are so expensive as well, especially
yeah.
for the times you're watching them. But yeah, so I know this season is absolutely, is we say it every year. I'm sure every fan says it, but this year seems to be the most stacked ever, and I have no idea which way it's going to go.
No. What's really interesting this year as well is all the changes. So all the people that have gone to new rides.
Yeah, I think Tomac's gone to Yamaha,
Yeah.
Anderson's on Cowie.
Yeah.
Who else have
Malcolm's
you
gone to
got?
Husky.
Yes. Who's gone to KTM? Plessinger to
A
KTM.
passenger. Yeah.
And we've so far, I think when does it start? 2 weeks we've had no dropouts for injuries, which is
The only thing we've had is an Osborne retirement.
oh yeah, I know. I heard about that on the
Yeah.
Pulp MX podcast, and I was really upset to hear that he didn't get another opportunity in Husky, and that he's
No,
just
I think he's retired because of his back, hasn't he? I thought he was out for injury. I thought he's just had enough.
yeah,
So
yeah, and he asked to stay on as a riding coach, but I think they
did he?
declined.
Oh, okay, that's a shame.
Yeah,
That's a
because obviously he's going to have some because he seems like a bit of an adopted Euro because he was in the GPs for years,
Yeah, yeah,
and
and you know he's one of those people who's genuinely really good for the sport because he's such a
yeah.
good personality. The way he carries himself and holds himself when he talks when he's being interviewed is he's exactly what you need in the sport.
Yeah, 100%. And I know he's only like 31, 32, but it gives the longevity of the sport seems to be going up and up and up because I think he won his motocross title when he was 31. So you see so many riders going away at 27, 28. It gives me hope to see that we'll see guys sticking around a little bit longer.
Yeah, but then in the same breath, is it going to be similar to boxing and stuff like that in a way where people are going to be going out because of injury and they're never going to recover from those injuries because they're too old? I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of dangers in the sport as it is, and
That's
that's why we love it, right? But
Yeah, that's very true. And I think how many sports really have kids at a high level from like five onwards, and that the wear, like you said, the wear and tear on your body. But I know
yeah,
nutrition and training has come on so much that hopefully we see some of the guys stick around as long as they're able to. Because I recently listened to the James Stewart podcast,
hmm
and it just made me realize how much I missed some of the riders in the industry, and it was really nice to hear his thoughts again. And even if those guys aren't riding, it's just nice to have them in some form of capacity back in the sport.
it's always nice, isn't it? And what other sport do you have people say at the age of 25, "I've had a really long career," and they
Yeah,
actually mean it? They're
yeah,
not saying, "I've had a really long career" because they've been doing it for 4 years or
yeah,
5 years. They're doing it because they've been doing it for 20 years.
yeah. Which is mind blowing. Like I don't
Yeah,
know many sports that put them in that realm, and I don't know what it's like in British culture for the racing or anything like that. But from what I've seen in America, it's everyone's 100% in nowadays, and at 7 years old,
yeah.
you're thinking about contracts, and that has got to be a lot of pressure for a kid.
Well, there is that side of it as well. So, yeah.
So
But yes, it's definitely going to be an interesting year, this one.
do you have any predictions? Any thoughts of who's going to come out on top?
I'm really worried that Ferrandis is going to take the 450 title.
Well, he did
I
look
like Ferrandis.
amazing outdoors. He did look amazing.
Yeah, I mean he's the surprise, isn't he, at the moment? Because like considering his first year in Supercross 450, he was all right. I think
Yeah,
did he have one podium or was it a win? I can't remember.
I can't remember off the top of
He,
my
he
head.
had he had something, but he looked all right. He didn't look anything special. Like most people that move up to 450s, they tend to regress a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but he came out swinging outdoors, so my guess is he's probably going to do the same in Supercross.
It will be interesting to see because although the sports are so similar, the kind of they're almost like chalk and cheese. They're similar, but the technicality and everything would be so different. So he may come out swinging, but there's just so much talent right now. You think the two
Yeah.
I'm really looking at is AC and Sexton. I know they've had some really, like you said, those tough transitionary years, but I think this might be the year that they come out and finally start getting those podiums and consistency.
Yeah, and I want to say AC probably transitioned better than most because he was right up there and he could run with the top three guys in any race. But I think also he was probably riding a bit over his limit. So
Yeah.
same with Sexton to an extent, right? All they've got to do is just wind it in a bit, calm it down, and you're right. They could be consistently top three guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I know AC loves an injury. I think he's made a paper mache. So bless
Yeah,
him. He's had like a Dean Wilson. I love Dino to bits, but
yeah,
he
yeah,
seems to find a way of smashing himself up every time, which is sad to see because he has got some ridiculous talent on the bike, and I feel like his career has been a bit lopsided because of some horrific injuries.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll
Mm.
see. I'm really excited to watch it. The 250s, I'm really hoping Joe Shimoda pulls through. I don't know what it is. I've not even seen much about him, but his technique just makes me want to watch him loads. His technique seems to be so crisp that I love.
Shimoda's an amazing guy, isn't he? Because like when he gets interviewed, he's so honest. He's like,
Yeah,
"I didn't do well. I didn't deserve that." Because he might get a podium because someone, I don't know, took himself out in a corner, and he gets to the end of the race, and someone goes, "How do you feel about getting your first podium?" And he's like, "It's a shame I didn't earn it."
yeah,
How humble is that? I mean, you don't get that kind of mentality in these kind of top levels of this kind of sport. You get egos, which you need, and you get entitlement, which again you kind of need because it all fuels that need to win. But then you get someone like Shimoda that does it, and he's just like the most humble guy in the world. So I've got a lot of time for him.
I know he's super young as well, and yeah, he's one of the guys I've been looking out for. And it's funny that I was listening to the Gypsy Tales podcast with Chase Sexton on the other day, and he was saying how so many riders come off as vanilla because they don't want to say the wrong things. But it
Yeah.
really does hold the sport back because if you've got people like Jet Lawrence and Shimoda that come out with those personalities, they gain so much traction because you want them to do well because you're invested in what they want to do in the future.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at Lawrence's following.
Yeah.
He's like I don't want to say he's like the next Stewart or whatever, but he's got that immediate love of the fans.
Yeah, exactly. And
Great.
I know he gets a lot of crap for using TikTok and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, that's bringing you money and viewership to the sport. We shouldn't be holding those people back. We should be learning from them and seeing how to promote them. Like I love Ryan Dungey, but he is I could probably write his script for the podium before he went up. I knew exactly what he was going to say.
I'd
He
like
was,
to give it up to the man above.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. We had a few settings out today, but we'll be back next week. And you're like, oh, come on, Ryan,
yeah,
like tell me a little bit more. And it wasn't until he retired that I started to learn about who he was as a person. And he's one of the greatest riders of all time statistically. And
yeah,
yeah, it was like watching Vanilla Ice Cream ride around on the track. And you're like, come on,
yeah, yeah,
give me a little
yeah.
bit more.
He's got a personality, but it's so embedded behind. You have to behave like this, and
Yeah.
maybe it was a safety net for him. I don't know, but yeah, fantastic rider. I listened to that podcast that he did with Weege about coffee, and I'm like, I've never learned so much about coffee in my life.
That seems to be the motocross path, doesn't it? It's either you get a
Yeah,
coffee brand, you get an ambassador brand, or you start a podcast. It's one of those
yeah,
three.
yeah. That's it.
But like you said, it was nice to see him come out of a shell, and I understand they're under pressure, they're doing their job, but at the same time, like Ryan Villapoto was the most boring person on the podium, yet you hear him on a podcast about how he's spreading his butt cheeks in front of Weimer's mum behind the scenes, and you're like, where has this guy been all my life? Like, I understand
Yeah,
you can't exactly run on the podium and do that, but that could change the trajectory of the sport, and in turn make them even more money and exposure again. So it must be
yeah.
difficult as a pro athlete, though.
Oh, totally. And I think it's down to the kind of the social norms that are available for you at the time as well. Because like, look at what the young guys coming up now have got available to them in
Yeah.
terms of a platform they can actually do themselves. Like, I'm guessing Jet Lawrence just films stuff on his phone and chucks it on TikTok for fun.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
doesn't have a PR guy doing all that for him. It's just him having messing around in the car and in the garage and all that kind of stuff. But back when Villapoto was, coming up and developing a fan base, he didn't have that opportunity. So
That's very true. Yeah, that's kind of a perspective I've never even thought about. So, but yeah, hopefully it elevates the sport a little bit because apart from the small niche that we're in, if I'm working away or I'm working in the office, no one has a clue what motocross and supercross is. They think it's called scrambling still. So
Yeah.
it's obviously still quite far behind in terms of exposure.
Yeah, I think I had one friend I could talk to in person, and I now don't work with them. So like I have no one to talk to about this stuff. It sucks in a way because you watch the race, you go in pumped on Monday, or you go in upset on Monday because of what's happened, and you just kind of sat there, or like when they did those Supercross races on Tuesdays, what we were getting last year,
Yeah,
and I'm sitting there on my lunch break watching them because I can't look at my phone all morning because I'm gonna see a spoiler.
yeah.
So I'm sitting there on my break watching them, and someone will come along and go start having a conversation with you, and you're like, leave us alone, mate. I'm watching Supercross. You're watching what?
Yeah, and all they want to talk about is the local football game. I have nothing against football.
Yeah,
I just don't watch it. But I
no.
started putting Supercross on a big TV in an upstairs office, and then when people walk through, just force them into the sport. Like, come here, sit down, watch this.
Oh,
No idea.
lovely. Yeah, we haven't got that opportunity, but that sounds like a good way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So, before we close out, because we are bang on the hour, which is fantastic. Have you got any upcoming projects? Have you got anything? I know we spoke about your releases and stuff, but anything going on with the YouTube channel? You know, what's going on in your world in the next few months regarding MX bikes?
Well, I'm working on obviously the AMA pack. You touched on Glen Helen. That's definitely something that I want to do afterwards, and I want to do the main track. I want to do the vet track, and I want to do the Supercross track. I want to do the whole complex.
Oh wow,
So that's definitely something that's going to come in the future. No time scale whatsoever. Other than that, the only other thing that I'm going to be working on is I'm going to be putting together some new tutorials for the Moto X Collective. So we're going to have some more streamlined track creating tutorials. I'm going to do a lot of shorts as well, not YouTube shorts, but short tutorials on just basic stuff like how to do skies or how to do rotating objects or track sounds, how to use trackhead. They're all going to be kind of short, easy to digest videos because I think although my tutorials cover everything, like you said, you didn't get through it, and that's fair enough because you're not making tracks. But even if you are, you're sitting there for an hour, 2 hours watching me talk, which is dull, right? So
it's not necessarily that it's dull. I think it's just that, like you said, there's a lot to ingest at once, and it's
there is,
quite.
yeah,
If you've had no exposure to it like myself, I was watching it. I was more blown away with the detail involved with it, and yeah, that would be a perfect idea. And I was going to ask you, what is if someone's listening to this that's new for track creation, they can obviously watch your tutorials. But if you have any other tips to help them out, any other resources that they could look into?
to be honest, not really. It's kind of it is what it is. You just got to get stuck in. Tip wise, yeah, get into it and stick to it because I know people that have started and they've sent me stuff and I've gone, that's a great start. Here's how you can improve because like constructive criticism is always the best, right?
Yeah, of
So
course.
you give people a few tips. They go away, they listen, they come back and they say, check this out, and you check it out. I'm always blown away. The people that stick with it create amazing tracks. And I myself, like earlier on, I'm updating Unadilla, and a couple of sections are changed, and I make it, and it's lumpy and crap, but it kind of has a vibe of what I want. And I go back and I probably redo that section or kind of grind away at that section until it's perfect, and I'll test it. I don't know, 20 to 30 times, 20 to 30 iterations of one corner and a
Yeah,
jump. It's all about how much time you put into it. It's what you get out of it. So that's my tip.
yeah, of course, and
Don't give up. Stick at it.
100%. And there is a lot of instant gratification around at the moment that if something
Yeah,
doesn't work, people give up. And it's not well, it's not too similar, but I've only been doing YouTube seriously now for 6 months, and I find myself getting frustrated. Like, why am I not growing? And I'm like, well, actually, back up, be more interesting, learn a tip about creating a thumbnail, learn this about video editing, and if you can get a little bit better every time, and in 100 videos you can see some improvement, or the same with you guys with the track releases, like you just said there, that took you 30 iterations of a corner. That is for one corner, like that hopefully will put it into perspective for someone that are like, oh, I this is my first draft and it sucks. I'm like, well, I'll do a few thousand more and see how it
do
goes.
more. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, same as anything. Anything worth doing is worth doing right. Yeah, so simple as that, really.
exactly. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time for today, and I hope this reaches enough people to highlight how much work you and the community have put in, and hopefully this will help boost the viewership of the MotoX Collective and give back to the creators. Because without you guys, we would have no way of having the extra content. We would get very bored very quickly. So a massive thank you to all the creators and yourself out there, and for yourself for taking the time today.
That's awesome. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Not a problem. It's great to get to know you a bit, and I
Yeah.
think this should be up tomorrow, so I think it uploads pretty quickly. So I'll tag the MotoX Collective because I know that's your in the title, because I know that's your YouTube channel, and yeah, hopefully that helps everyone out a little bit. But yeah, it was an absolute pleasure today, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
buddy. Catch you later on.
Take care.